is President Trump crazy? That's the question. People are asking about the 25th Amendment, but think about it. We went to war and the Strait of Hormuz was open. The Ayatollahs had kept the strait open for 47 years. In response, they closed it. Now Trump is negotiating to open it, but he just announced that he's going to close it.
Hey, welcome back to the channel, my friends. Hope you are doing absolutely fantastic today. In this one, journalist Mehdi Hasan sits down with Vermont Senator Peter Welch for a no-holds-barred conversation, and let me tell you, Peter does not hold back. They get into the disastrous Iran war, the chaos coming out of the White House, the historic Senate vote on weapons transfers, and Peter even openly questions whether the current president is actually of sound mind. This is the kind of unfiltered honesty you almost never hear from a sitting United States senator. Make sure you stick around all the way through, because the second half is where Peter drops some absolutely jaw-dropping commentary you do not want to miss. Also, drop a comment and let me know what country, state, or city you are watching from today. I genuinely love seeing where this community is tuning in from. It makes my whole day. All right. Enough from me. Let's get straight into it.
So you're right about the economic situation. Clearly that's hurting the Republicans, going to help you electorally. On the war, though, I wonder how much it will help you electorally, given there's people like yourself and Bernie Sanders and others who have been very critical, Chris Murphy, of this war from the outset. But there are others in your party who came late to this. And your leader in the Senate isn't really known for being an anti-war figure. I want to play a clip of Chuck Schumer speaking last year. He posted a video about Trump and Iran before the war. Have a listen.
When it comes to negotiating with the terrorist government of Iran, Trump's all over the lot. One day he sounds tough, the next day he's backing off. And now, all of a sudden, we find out that Witkoff and Rubio are negotiating a secret side deal with Iran. What kind of bull is this? They're going to sound tough in public and then have a side deal that lets Iran get away with everything? That's outrageous. We need to make that side deal public. Any side deal should be before Congress and, most importantly, the American people. If Taco Trump is already folding, the American public should know about it. No side deal.
So that's Chuck Schumer last year, egging Trump on to be more hawkish on Iran, saying we shouldn't have any side deals and he needs to be tough in public. That's the kind of rhetoric some people, and you know this, people in your party would say, people in your base would say, that's the kind of democratic hawkishness that emboldens a Trump and emboldens the Republican Party.
You know, there's a difference between being hawkish and being stupid, all right? Trump is talking tough. He's going to bomb them into the Stone Age. But what he doesn't appreciate is what's the limits of what can be accomplished through military means. And Iran, led by the Ayatollahs, have an infinite capacity to inflict pain on their own citizens or accept pain inflicted by others. So there has to be some negotiation that should be more transparent. I do agree totally with Senator Schumer that there shouldn't be, quote, side deals. And,
but that was a video very clearly put out to attack Trump from the right. That was not a video saying, let's tone things down, let's do a deal with Iran. That was a video saying, be tougher on Iran. Well, let's be clear.
And also be smarter. But look, I voted just last night against transferring weapons to Israel.
How did Chuck Schumer vote last night?
And he voted for it. We disagree.
How many people voted against the weapons?
7. And the Democratic Party.
40 of your colleagues. You and 39 of your colleagues voted to block weapons.
That's correct.
And 7 Democrats, including the leader of your caucus, voted against it. How can he lead a caucus if he's in a minority of 7, Senator Welch?
Well, I don't want to turn this into a discussion about what Chuck Schumer...
I'm just wondering. We don't have to turn it into a discussion. It's a simple question. How does he lead a caucus if 6 people are on his side and 40 of you are against him? I don't understand the math.
Well, he loses some votes. I mean, the reality is there's a lot of space in our caucus. And, when we started out on this, when it came to weapons to Israel, there were 3 of us, Bernie Sanders, Jeff Merkley, and me, who voted no. We now have 40. So
But you're making my point for me, Senator Welch. People watch you and say, okay, I like Peter Welch of Vermont. I like Bernie Sanders of Vermont. There's something in the water of Vermont. We like those guys. They've been taking a consistent anti-war position, anti-weapons to Israel position. But that's not the Democratic Party. You're not the leader. The leader is Chuck Schumer, and he doesn't take that position.
No,
do you understand that people do? I get people telling me this all the time. Democrats are bad, and I say, well, there are good Democrats who are trying to stop this, and they say, but look at the leadership.
Right. So you can have your beef with Schumer on this issue. Well,
62% of Democrats say they want new leadership in Congress.
No, I understand that. But we can talk about that, and there's going to be an election, and hopefully we're going to get the majority. That's something that Senator Schumer works on incredibly hard, and it's within reach. It was wishful thinking for us to think we could take back the Senate majority. Now it's a very realistic likelihood.
Okay, you have to understand something right off the bat. When Peter Welch said there's a difference between being hawkish and being stupid, that line right there should be printed on a t-shirt, because that is the entire problem with how Washington has been thinking about Iran for the last 2 decades. They confuse looking tough with actually being smart, and the price is paid by Iranian civilians, by American workers, and by every single person who has to pay an extra $2,000 at the gas pump. And here's the part that blows my mind. Mehdi played that old Chuck Schumer video where Schumer was basically egging the president on to be tougher on Iran. Egging him on. The supposed leader of the Democratic caucus in the Senate. And his strategy was to attack from the right, to demand a harder line. Let me break down why this matters, because this is exactly how you end up with a war nobody wanted. When the so-called opposition spends years competing to look more aggressive instead of competing to look more thoughtful, you create a political environment where the only direction is escalation. There is no off-ramp. There is no diplomacy lane. There is only who can sound meaner. And that is why Iran is in the position it's in right now. You have to remember, Iran signed the JCPOA. They actually agreed to inspections. They were enriching uranium at a tiny percentage that was carefully monitored. And then, what happened? A new administration ripped it up because tearing it up looked tougher than honoring it. Now Iran is enriching at 60%. 60. That is what tough guy theater gets you. It gets you the opposite of the outcome you claimed you wanted. This is the part people don't realize. Iran has been a sovereign nation pursuing its own path for decades, and every time the West tries to humiliate them at the negotiating table, it strengthens the hardliners inside their own government. Diplomacy was working. It was actually working, and it got blown up for a press conference. When Mehdi said 62% of Democrats want new leadership in Congress, the statistic is the loudest siren in the room. Voters are tired. They are exhausted by a leadership that watches a war start, watches their gas prices climb, and then asks them to clap politely.
Senator Schumer is not the leader when it comes to where the Democratic Party is on what's going on with Israel, in Lebanon, in Iran. And the war is extremely unpopular. And many of my colleagues who were with Senator Schumer on their position just a year ago are now listening to their constituents who do not like this war, who think that it is making us less secure, and do not want to have Benjamin Netanyahu essentially dictating policy. And that's where the focus is. And I think Senator Schumer is going to realize that. And how could he not when we've got 40 Democrats who are making it very clear we don't want to be doing these weapon transfers to Benjamin Netanyahu.
That was a major vote last night, right? That was historic.
It was a historic vote where it shows, it's, again, step back a second. Trump did something astonishing. When he was making a decision about whether to commit us to war, he invited the leader of another country, Benjamin Netanyahu, into the Situation Room. And Netanyahu gave him assurances that if we bomb, then the Ayatollahs will collapse and there'll be regime change. If we bombed, he asserted, the Strait of Hormuz would stay open. Even with President Trump's own intelligence people saying that's farcical, Trump went ahead based on his, quote, gut. And it's really a deference to Netanyahu. That is totally and utterly irresponsible for a leader of a country, in this case Trump, to basically kowtow to the leader of another country when their agenda is totally different than what our needs are. So the American people get that. My Republican colleagues, who I think have significant reservations about the leadership of President Trump, are not stepping up and acting as a U.S. Senator must act, and that is on accept the responsibility we have to make our own decisions about the wisdom of committing our country to war.
I want to come back to Israel and Netanyahu in a moment. You mentioned Trump being stupid and dumb and just not understanding things and being misled by Netanyahu. He's obviously had a crazy week, even by Trump crazy standards. He posted a picture of himself as Jesus, falsely claimed he was a doctor. He's been doing late night mad posting. You posted a video recently suggesting Trump is not of sound mind. I think we have it here. We can play a short clip from it.
Is President Trump crazy? That's the question. People are asking about the 25th Amendment, but think about it. We went to war and the Strait of Hormuz was open. The Ayatollahs had kept the strait open for 47 years. In response, they closed it. Now Trump is negotiating to open it, but he just announced that he's going to close it. This is not a rational plan, but it is having real impacts on everyday Vermonters and everyday Americans. It's a recklessness that I've never seen in my lifetime. So you answer the question. Is a person who's doing what he's doing of sound mind?
Oh no. Oh no. The moment Peter Welch said the president invited the leader of another country into the Situation Room while making a war decision, that was the mask-off moment of the entire interview, because that tells you who is actually steering American foreign policy, and it is not the American people. Let me be very clear about why this matters. The Situation Room is supposed to be the most secure decision-making space in the entire United States government. It is where American intelligence officials, military leaders, and elected American officials weigh whether to send American sons and daughters into harm's way. And in that room, sitting at the table, was a foreign prime minister with his own agenda, his own political problems back home, and his own reasons for wanting Americans dragged into a war. Peter then said something that should make every single person watching this furious. He said the president's own intelligence people called Benjamin Netanyahu's claims farcical. Farcical. That is not a small word. That is the United States intelligence community saying the assurances being given were a fantasy, and the president went ahead anyway because of his, quote, gut. His gut. We are talking about a war. We are talking about closing the Strait of Hormuz. We are talking about energy markets, oil prices, allied relationships, the lives of millions of Iranian civilians, and the deciding factor was a feeling. You have to understand the historical weight of this. Going all the way back to Eisenhower, presidents have been warned about letting foreign powers manipulate American foreign policy. Eisenhower himself, in his farewell address, warned about exactly this kind of capture, where outside interests use American military strength as their personal hammer. That warning was in 1961. 60-plus years later, we are watching it happen in real time. And when Peter delivered this line, I had to pause. Is the president crazy? He laid out the math. The Strait of Hormuz was open. Open. For 47 years it was open. The president's actions caused Iran to close it. And now the same president is simultaneously negotiating to reopen it and announcing he is going to close it. That is not a strategy. That is a man arguing with himself in public while the world economy hangs in the balance. This is what people don't realize. Iran did not wake up one day and decide to disrupt global shipping. Iran responded to a country bombing its territory. That is sovereignty. That is what any nation on earth would do. And we are calling them the irrational actor.
So House Democrats, led by Jamie Raskin, are putting forward legislation to establish a commission on presidential capacity under the 25th Amendment, which of course allows for the vice president and cabinet to remove a president who is mentally unfit, like this one. Do you support that initiative?
Well, I do. But let me say, number one, I don't think he is of sound mind. I mean, you heard me, what I said in the video, and it's totally incoherent. And he just ricochets from one policy directive to another. So the questions I get from everyday regular people is, Peter, what is going on? They just don't even understand it, and they can't follow it, and it makes no sense to them. So it's a totally fair question. The second issue is, as with impeachment, I voted to impeach President Trump twice. Okay, I would do it a third time. The 25th Amendment, I think, is a fair question. Is it a practical resolution? Probably not, because it starts with the vice president, who basically has to initiate it. Just like with impeachment, you'd have to get a vote. So yeah. I think that they're totally meritorious issues, impeachment and the 25th Amendment. But
they're not going to have a practical outcome in the real world.
You've got to have a practical outcome. And I think that us That is exactly right. So where are you going to spend your time and how? And what we're seeing is that us standing up and articulating the why we're opposed to Trump, but also accepting the burden that we've got to be advocating for with policies that are going to be helpful to folks that are struggling to pay their bills and are being hurt by Trump policies. That we take that burden on, we're starting to do well electorally, and that is in some of these local elections.
Yes.
You know, that in Virginia, in Texas, so our prospects are good.
So I watched that video you made. I'm glad you said that, and I wish more Democrats would just be clear about the fact that this man is crazy.
This right here is where I need every single person watching to pay attention, because Peter Welch said the quiet part out loud. He said the president is not of sound mind. He said the policy directives ricochet from one decision to the next with no coherence, no plan, no strategy. And then he said something even more telling. He said regular people, everyday Americans, are coming up to him asking what is going on because they cannot follow it. They cannot make sense of it. That is the reality on the ground. And honestly, I'm glad a sitting senator finally said it without dressing it up in 15 layers of polite Washington language, because for years the political class has tiptoed around this question, treating obvious instability as if it were just a colorful personality. It is not a personality. It is a national security risk, when the most powerful office on earth is occupied by someone who cannot hold a coherent position from one morning to the next. Every ally questions us, every adversary tests us, and every working family pays the price. Mehdi closed this segment perfectly when he said he wished more Democrats would just be clear about it. And he is 100% right. The hesitation, the hedging, the constant search for the most diplomatic way to describe chaos, that is exactly what got us into this mess. You cannot fight a hurricane with a pamphlet. You have to name what is happening. And here's the part I want you to sit with. The Iranian people did not ask for this war. The American people did not ask for this war. Working families in Vermont, in Ohio, in California, none of them woke up wanting to pay an extra $1,000 on their heating bills so a foreign prime minister could get the regional outcome he personally wanted. The only people who benefited from this escalation are the people who profit from chaos. Defense contractors, oil speculators, politicians who needed a distraction. Peter Welch is doing the work that more elected officials need to do. He is naming the problem. He is voting against weapon transfers. He is pushing back inside his own party. That is leadership. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.